Hello, I'm Lauren Carr, and welcome to Authors on iTours. Do you have an idea for a book kind of turning around in your head? Maybe you have a character who's talking, whispering in your ear, but you've had no formal training and you're not quite sure what to do with that. Should you try writing a book? Are you a fool? What should you do? How do you get started? Well, you're going to want to stick around for today's interview with Michele Clarizio about her debut novel, The Price of Truth, the first installment in her Chasing Peace series. Today, Michele has advice for you on how to get started in writing your first book and making your dream of being an author a reality.
Hello, this is Lauren Carr, and welcome to Authors on iTours, a podcast devoted to authors, book bloggers, and other book lovers alike.
So Michele, now you have grown children. So we're not going to talk about how old you are, but you have decided at this stage in your life that you are going to write novels, and The Price of Truth is your first installment in your Chasing Peace series. What made you decide to write this book? What was your inspiration for that?
It really wasn't a decision. It just came upon me over time. I think that for me, I've always been rooted in like lifelong stories. Like I loved to read. I thought reading was an amazing escape, especially when I was raising my young kids. And I just always had a mind that was busy creating. And so I didn't even realize that I was creating my own story in my head. And the more that I read, the more my own story kind of blossomed. And I find myself daydreaming about, oh, what would this look like? And if I wrote a book and all of that. So it started with me just playing around and journaling. And then my character, Karis Russo, who's the protagonist in the book, she just came to life and I just couldn't let her go. And I just felt like she had a story to tell. And it just started like that. And I wrote my first chapter and I was like, oh my gosh, this is god awful. And then I had to just keep on honing my skill. But there was just something in me that was placed in my heart divinely, and I just couldn't let it go. So I had to see it through. And so it was a long process, many, many years that I wrote this book. And it started back about 10 years ago. And then I got divorced, and then I had to raise my kids on my own. So then it was just like I didn't have time to write anymore. And then COVID came around, and well, we were all at home. So I picked where I left off, and actually ended up rewriting the whole thing even when I started. But it just kind of blossomed from there. And when I started writing it, there were all of these signs that came to me that were just like, you need to write this book. You need to write this book. One day my friend showed up at my door, and she had never given me a book before. And she's like, you should read this book. And I was like, okay, that's strange. And then my cousin all of a sudden emailed me this Gucci flash drive or USB stick. And I was like, why would she give me that? So I was like, okay, the universe is speaking to me. I have to write this book. So it really was just something that I felt was placed in my heart. And I was never a person that I know I have friends that are like, I will have a goal and I want to be a published author. That was never it for me. It was just something that lived in my heart. And I just feel like this was my calling. Like this was my gift that I had a hone from God. And hopefully I did that.
Yeah, I was going to ask that if you ever had the goal to be an author. Now you said that you read. Were when you were in high school or a teenager or your early? Were you a reader? Were you always book of Fazio or?
I always read, but through different spurts. So there would be times, and it was just sort of like what was going on in my life. When things were quiet, I had more time to read. And then, as soon as the kids came along, there was always a stack of books that I had on my nightstand, but sometimes those didn't open at the end of the night. So it's, I never thought that I would write a book ever. If you would have told me 15 years ago, you're going to publish a book, I would have been like, no, that's not happening. But that's why it's so strange. I always had a creative mind, and I loved creative things. I love art. I love decorating, but it didn't come to me until, all of this kind of full circle when I thought back and about how creative my brain was. But it just, because I'm a business major, this wasn't in my wheelhouse at all. But I did, right before I graduated from college, I had one more elective that I had to pick, and it was a journalism class that I took just for fun. And I remember we were creating ads for Visa. And I just loved the creativity of it, just to kind of create something from nothing. And I really felt fueled by it. But, I was graduating in a few months with a business degree. So that's kind of where I headed, and went into the finance world. So yeah, this is not anywhere where I thought I would go, which actually kind of makes it fun.
That is a really neat cover you have. Now,
I have a great designer that helped me create the cover. I gave her an idea of what I wanted. And so much of the book plays on mirrors and her green eyes. So I really just wanted that to just be, the focus of just that was all throughout the book, just the mirrors and how she didn't want to look in a mirror, and she never knew why she didn't want to look into the mirror, but then she finds out at the end.
Okay. Now tell us about The Price of Truth and the Chasing Peace series. This is the first installment in this series. Tell us about the book that you've spent 10 years.
10 years crafting. Yeah. So this is probably, I don't know, the 20th rendition. I have edited and re-edited just like every author does, right? Over and over again. So it's very multi-layered. It's a mystery, it's a thriller, and with a dash of romance in it. So it's basically about a girl that goes to a grand opening at a hotel one night with her boyfriend at the time, and she wakes up the next morning and she's beat up and bruised, and she has no recollection of what happened. And she spends the book trying to figure out why her memory, just completely went blank. And she goes through therapy sessions and revisiting the place where it all happened just to try and piece it all together. And then when she finds out the truth, well, that's when she realized that the price of truth is very hefty.
And this is the first in the series. So does this character, your character of Karis, does she go on? Does this set her on on a path of chasing peace?
It does.
Tell us what the Chasing Peace is. So is this going to be a continuing series? Where
it is a continuing series. Yeah, it picks up where it left off on book 2, and it will be about her journey to continue to chase peace.
How many installments is there going to be in this series?
So it looks like right now there's going to be a total of 3, but that can always change, just as, when I was writing, sometimes where I thought I was going, all of a sudden the character just kind of took on a new dimension and a new direction. So, at this point, I have a very rough outline of where the next books are going to go, but I'm not the type of writer that can plan things out with an outline. I have to just kind of let it go. I can have a rough outline, but it just evolves when I start typing.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the characters take you in a different direction.
Yeah.
There's terms in writing. There's the plotter, and then there's the pantser.
Pantser.
And I'm a plantser, where I plan it, but
Yeah.
the characters take me. I mean, I plan it, but the characters take me in another direction.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
probably a
but I
little
end
bit
up in
like
the
that.
same place.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Well, now, so you've had no. Now you've said you've had no formal training other than your
Mhm.
journalism course in college. What advice do you give to somebody who, like you know, okay, I'm going to write a book, but they don't have a background. They don't have a journalism background. They don't have an editing background or publishing
Yeah.
background. What advice
Yeah.
do you give to someone who decides I'm going to write a book, or I've had that on my bucket list? What
Yeah.
would you suggest they do?
I think that if it's in your heart, you'll find a way, right? So I think that so often we get stuck in like the minutia of it all, and that it's like, how am I going to do this? I don't know how to write. You just start, and that's why I think that it's kind of for me, when I started journaling, it was just basically a mind dump, right? So I just started just writing everything that I could, and then I went back and reread it and then organized it. So I think that um, don't question it. If it's something that you want to do, you just have to start. Just open up your computer, open up your document, and just start writing. And I think that, you'll see that it does just kind of take on a life of its own when you start free writing. So I would say that have the courage just to do it. It doesn't hurt, right? Like I said, my first chapter, I was so excited. I had 26 pages, and I was like, I felt so accomplished. And then I went and read it out loud, and I was like, this is absolutely the most horrible thing I've ever read. So
Now,
then I
why
was
did I
like,
do that?
yeah,
But
yeah.
you didn't
So
quit. But that's the thing. You didn't quit. You
no.
know,
And so
no.
I just, what really helped me was reading.
Mm.
I even when I was stuck in, writing my own book, I would walk away from it and I would read, because you can, you'll get an idea, you're not stealing an idea from somebody else, but it just, your mind starts turning, thinking about your own book. And so, I've always, whenever I was stuck, I just went back and just picked up books that I had read before.
And how to do it. Stephen
Yeah.
King, his book, did somebody ever give you On Writing? Stephen King's book. He wrote it like 20 years ago. I read it like 20 years ago. And it's kind of an autobiography, but the second half of the book is advice for writers. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that he says, that writers have to be readers. You have to read. And he said, even reading bad books will help you, because
Well,
specifically what you're
I agree
saying,
with that.
it will tell you how to do something. It will give you an idea of how to do something, or
Yeah.
where to go with this character is
Right,
what.
right. Absolutely. I think that reading is 100% essential. And it's just, you can see how you can get inspiration from other writers and how they've, written a scene, and it's, you can be inspired by that, and just to see how they did it. My book did have one of the first rewrites, it did have different points of view from characters speaking. And, when I was talking to my editor, we just really felt like it lost the power of the book. So we rewrote those and figured out how to make those fit in, the information that we had to get out, fit in other places. But I think that when I was hearing about the whole editing process before I even delved into it, I was terrified of it. I was like, oh my gosh, they're just going to take apart your book. And, and you get through it. If it's in your heart, you just know it's going to be hard work. It's not easy, but just a little bit each day is what I worked on. And then all of a sudden I had a book. So for people out there, I would say it is daunting. It is hard to write a book. I've had so many people that I've talked to that are like, oh, I want to write a book. And it's just start, just do it, just sit down and start. That's really, you can hone your craft as you go along. And I think, you're a writer too, that you write it and you read it and you can read it and you're like, ugh, I need that, so it's
Yeah, I let
definitely
it sit.
a
I let
process.
it actually sit and sort of ferment while I'm working on thinking on the next book,
Yeah.
is what I did.
Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Now you mentioned that first chapter. I had it was an advice someone gave me years ago. I think it was even before I wrote my first book, or maybe it was after I wrote my first book. They had said, you write a book and then you throw away the first chapter because the first chapter isn't usually as good. You get on the flow of it on the second chapter. Is that what you did? That first chapter that you said, this is the worst thing I ever did. Did you throw it away or did you use
The
it?
first chapter was my nemesis. It has morphed into something way different than it was initially. But yes, it was when my editor first read it, she said, I feel like the first chapter is a different book than the second chapter. And that's exactly, you're right. So we did have to basically scrap it. And I rewrote the first chapter after many edits because I couldn't get it. And I just had to let it sit and marinate. And then we finally got it at the end. But yeah, that first chapter was really, really tough because you want to come out and grab your reader, but you can't come out too strong, but you can't come out too weak. The balance is really hard to strike. And I hope we did that after all this.
Yeah. Now tell us about your protagonist, Karis. How much of you is in there? Because you said she kind of came to life while you were journaling. How
Yeah,
much of you is she, or how much of she is you?
she is probably someone that I hoped that or wish that I could have been in my younger years. Karis she's super close to my heart. I wanted her to, I guess, have her relatable in the sense that there's so much that, we shoulder as young adults. And I wanted her to have a really strong voice and not be afraid to speak her truth, and also have resilience. She deals with a lot of anxiety. I think a lot of young kids and adults actually deal with anxiety that they don't quite know what to do with. I think a lot of kids feel lost, and she does deal with that. She is lost, and she's trying to find her way. But I think that I wanted to. I wish I could have been as strong as a young adult as she is. I think that I've grown into that. So in that respect, maybe she's a reflection of who I wish that I would have been. But I think that overall, I wanted her to give a message to young women and even older women that it's okay to feel lost. It's okay to go to therapy. It's just okay to struggle. But you've got to get through the hard stuff, to get to the end. So I think that even when it's messy and it's painful, I think that just resilience is really what I think that I've garnered through life. And so in that respect, yeah. But I just wanted her voice to help people feel understood and to just let them know that it's okay not to be okay, And actually, it's part of the design, right? Because when you're not okay is when you do the hard work, and that's when you grow and get stronger. So she is not me. She did evolve into her own person. I think that I admired who she was so much as a young adult. So yeah, she's just she's a really amazing young woman that I hope other people can relate to.
So Michele, so now this is the Price of Truth is #1 in the Chasing Peace series. When is book 2 ready to come, and what's the title, and when will that be released?
So we're thinking probably in the next year and a half it's going to be released. The title is not solidified yet, so we're not exactly sure. I haven't come up with a title that I feel comfortable with. I've toyed around with some different options, but hasn't spoken to me 100% yet. Yeah, so it probably a year and a half, and then it picks up where book one ended. So book one ended after she graduated from high school, and now book two is going to be when she's in college. And there are some things that are going to draw her back to book one that she
Uh-huh.
still needs to deal with, that she's kind of swept underneath the carpet. And so it will evolve, and there's some new characters, but we love so many of the old characters that they're going to be back in book two as well.
Uh-huh. Now you say that she's in high school in this first installment. Is this a YA fiction?
Yes.
Usually that's what happens is so it's a YA suspense or YA fiction.
Yep. Yeah. It's, suspense, thriller, mystery, kind of
Uh-huh.
all of those things with the dash of romance.
Not available for pre-order right now as we're recording this, as we are
Correct.
recording this. But it's going to be released on June 18th.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
and it's going to be available in print and ebook, and you can find it
Correct.
on Amazon. And that's
That's
when your
right.
tour with Ivory Book Tours is launching.
That's right.
That's right. Oh, well, it sounds the Price of Truth, we're really going to be looking forward to this, and we're also going to be looking forward to the other installments in the Chasing Peace series. So thank you very much for joining us today, Michelle. Now, where can people go to find out more about you?
So
And
my website is Michele with one L, Clarizio.com. And I'll spell that. It's MicheleClarizio.com. And that's my website. You can find my social media there, and I'm active on that and releasing new information about the book daily.
oh, okay, great. Well, it's going to be a fun tour and it's going to be a fun release. Are you going to have a launch party?
Yes, actually, June
Oh,
18th as
okay,
well.
tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's because this has been such a long process, it's going to be a big celebration. There's about 75 people coming, and a beautiful venue with a rooftop
Oh,
in the evening. So we're really excited to celebrate this accomplishment with my children, and they've really helped me along the way and
uh,
encouraged me. So it's finally time to celebrate after all the
yeah.
hard work.
Oh, okay. Well, I assume that that this is going to be in Colorado. That's where you're
It
from.
is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's going to
Well,
be in
maybe
Denver.
from the channel will come visit you at the
Yeah.
just walk in. Okay.
Right. You're right. That'd be great.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Michele. And we are really
Thank
looking
you.
forward to your release, and we're really looking forward to the tour.
Thank you for having me.
And that concludes this episode of Authors on iTours. If you enjoyed this episode, then do give us a like and a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe so that you can receive notifications for upcoming episodes of Authors on iTours. In the meantime, happy reading.